Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation.
And that's exactly what I do. Once a day in the morning, pretty big deal of the day. Hair gel comes from. Save America. It is, of course, me, your favorite person. I am joined by, probably, in my opinion, one of my most interesting guests. And this is the Winning Podcast. We've had people that have won at multiple things, sports. But my next guest, Jimmy G, has won at life. And a majority of my viewers, everybody loves The Wolf of Wall Street. But Jimmy G worked for Jordan Belfort. He was one of his top guys to work at Stratton. Jimmy G, you've won at life. You're a winner. Welcome to the Philosophy Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Phil, for having me. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you coming on. So,
yeah.
Jimmy G, a majority of my viewers, high school, college, kids, around that age range, and everybody's trying to win at life. You've done it in some of the craziest times where now there's movies coming about what you guys, used to do and what you guys went through. What was your first job on Wall Street?
So basically what I did, and by the way, my name is Jim Garofalo, but everybody can call me Jimmy G. That's cool. So I went to St. John's. I captained the hockey team there. And before I graduated, my sister Debbie said to me, she had a friend that was working at this brokerage firm on Long Island in Lake Success. And there's young guys there that are making a lot of money. They're driving Porsches, and you should go check it out. And I said, yeah, all right, why not? Because she had a friend that was working there. So on a Tuesday, right before I graduated, with a finance degree, I was going to go right down to Wall Street and get a job down there. I went to Stratton, and once again, it was in Lake Success on the border of Queens and Long Island. Wasn't far from where I grew up, about 20 minutes. So anyway, I walked into this room, and at the time, I would say it was the size of a football field, but it wasn't all full. I would say there was probably 100 guys and very, very few women. You're talking 1988. The guy took me in through the reception, and I'll never forget that day when I walked into that room and there was this sea of white shirts. No one wore blue or pink shirts back then. It was white. And just men my age, 25 years old, 26 years old, standing up and just pounding into the telephone. And I was like, as I'm telling you guys about it right now, I still get chills to this day about that day I walked in there. And it's funny, many years down the road, I was that guy that brought new recruits into the room and showed them. It was a roar, a sound that I'd never, ever heard before. It was just men pitching with energy into the telephone. And I basically said, where do I sign?
Oh my gosh. So it's practically like in the movie when they're at the office in Wall Street and everybody's outside, screaming for a job. Kind of like that kind of scene.
The movie, listen, he had started it in the movie in a garage. I wasn't involved at that point. The place was probably open maybe a year and a half when I got there. But in that building, it was like 6 months or so. So I took the job, and it was just working. Just first of all, like, so you're walking into an office of 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and everybody is jacked. Everybody is pumped. No one wants to be called the word piker, small fish. You learn that right away. And even as a cold caller, which I was, you had to work. And you had to write. So you worked for a broker. See, this is how it went. You worked for a broker who was already a broker there. You worked for him. He paid you $200 a week. That's all you got. And then you would have to write good leads. You'd have to write 5 or 6, 7, 8 good leads where you call Mr. Jones. You tell him that you want to send him some information. Basically, And then you'd have to get 3 stocks and, ballpark net worth. And if I came back to you with a good idea down the road, if it makes sense, would you maybe put $100,000 into it? Yeah, maybe. And then I worked for Howie Gelfand, and I would give him my leads. In the early goings, maybe the first 3 months before I took the 7, he was popping my leads. And you get noticed that way. But I mean, I'm just talking a little bit about the work ethic that was happened when I first started, and then you're amongst 100 guys that one after the other is hysterical, and the belly laughs that we had during the day. But you had to get your leads. You couldn't get 2 leads, and your broker wouldn't accept it. So if you only had 2 leads at 5 o'clock, you would stay until 9 o'clock. It didn't make a difference. That's what these guys created. As bad as they were, they created something. They caught lightning in a bottle that I've tried to duplicate many, many times through the years, and I came close, but never the way they put it together. And it was just the right time. The stars aligned. It was just people bought in. It was a sorority. You came there and you worked, but you saw people that basically were ahead of you, that passed the test months ahead of you or even a year ahead of you, and you saw the money that they were starting to make, and it was crazy. It was insane. But and the so we'll talk about everything, all the crazy antics and all the shit that went down there, but the work. I tell you what, in my life, I've made millions and millions of dollars on the telephone. It's all because of Stratton. That's where I got the training. That was military training, and you wanted to do it. And after you passed your test, they would say, then you're working for another broker, and you got to open up 50 accounts before you can go on your own. And then you've been there since 7 o'clock, and then Danny Porf would get on the microphone and say, 9 o'clock meeting on pausing with Rich Miller, and you'd have to stay until 10:30, and then you'd be back there at 7:30 the next day. But anybody who made money bought into that, and we did it. I got to tell you, I didn't make any money for 2 years. I was driving a jalopy Cutlass, and my wife was pregnant. And everybody. Here's a quick story. I'm there. I just got married, and my father-in-law comes to me, and he says to me, "Jim, I got good news for you," because I was struck like everybody else. I wasn't making any money, but I saw the guys ahead of me making big money. I knew I was better than them. So my father-in-law comes to me and says to me, "Listen, I got great news for you. I was able to get you into the sanitation department." And I looked at him and he goes, "Yeah, it's great benefits. Don't worry. You'll only have to pick up garbage for a few years and then you'll get." I said, when I was a kid, that's what my mother told me when I didn't study. I was going to be a garbage man. So obviously that didn't happen. And I still put my head down and I worked every day. But, once basically, the fun that we had but you really couldn't have any fun unless you were a broker and you were noticed. If you were a cold caller, Danny Porras would spit on you. He wouldn't talk to you. Nobody would talk to you. You were a piker. You had to move up the ranks. But like the midget tossing. I mean, we're all involved in that. That was insane. But that's what they wanted to do. That's what they created. The whole theme was work hard, play hard. So at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, these midgets would come walking in
every day, or like midget
no,
Monday, or like any like certain days.
No, a few times. It wasn't a few times. And these big steroid head animal guys would pick these 4 guys up and blast them into the wall, into the target. And these poor little midgets could take it. They're strong, those guys. But you can imagine how hard they got thrown into the wall.
We see in the movie, like we read like the stories that during like the midget tosses, Jordan Belfort, he's throwing cash at the floor. How much money did you ever win in like in a midget toss? And what other like games did you guys play? But first, you gotta tell me how much money you ever win in midget toss.
I didn't win any money in midget tossing. I was just part. It was the big, strong animals, guys on steroids.
So you never got to throw one.
No, I won some big contests, but I never threw one. No, I'd be lying. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I actually couldn't do it. It was more the laughing. I mean, you'd pee your pants. That's how funny it was. And they would throw money around like that. They would go, get on the microphone. I got $1,000 for the next new account. And then everybody go crazy trying to open up an account. And then they give you $1,000. You say, Jim, listen, if you get a hat trick today, I'm going to give you a gold Rolex. Then you do it. You know what I mean? You'd work your butt off. And you had, you couldn't, if you couldn't write wood leads. Like a wood lead is just somebody just some cold caller or a broker just writing a fake lead to show he had leads. But guys like that got exposed. And if you got exposed cheating or rat holing stock or stuff like that, they would embarrass you so bad and throw you out the door. You never wanted to be in that position because they were ruthless if you went against them in any way. So that was no joke. But and then the girls parading in like, after an IPO or something, and just like 20, they were called Gina girls. They were also called blue chips. And they just come in and just come on to, just like, if you, at that point, I was a big broker already, and they just come over and sit on my lap, and we just take them everywhere. Guys would take them in the parking lot, in the basement, bathrooms, and, anything went basically. And that was just, part of the fun.
How many years did it take you to become a broker there?
So this is what happened. I started there. I had a video store also that I was kind of making some money from. My dad was kind of running it for me, but it was $200 a week, and I took the test, very seriously. But I had a finance degree and I passed it. But it was no joke. You had to study for that test. So many people failed it the first time, second time. I know guys that failed it 3 times. So I was probably there 5 months before I took the test. They wouldn't let you. And another thing they would not let you do, if you already had a Series 7, you couldn't come to work for Stratton Oakmmont. You had to come in there and you had to train from the very, very beginning their way as a cold caller, writing leads for a broker, and then they would send you to the class, and then they would schedule your test, which took about 5 months.
You talk about that you only made $200 a week with that. How do you live off of that?
It was really difficult. My family helped me, and I just kept saying it to everybody, I'm going to make it in this. These guys that are making big money are not better than me. I'm so much better than them. But you had to pass the 7, then you had to open 50 accounts for your broker, 50, and then you're on your own, and then you don't even get $200 a week anymore. But then sometimes the brokers would let you keep some of your accounts that you opened, and then you could work on them. But it was so many people fall off and walk. Even today in the business that I'm in, listen, you have to. Everything starts with a cold call. Everything starts with a cold call, and cold calls turn into accounts. Leads turn into accounts. So you had to work. So what did I do? So once I went on my own, I looked at the guys that were making big money. And I said, okay, I'm going to follow a leader because I'm going to do what those guys are doing because they're successful. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would work till 9, 10, 11 o'clock, calling Hawaii, Alaska. And then they were coming in on Saturdays. So, I did the same thing, and once again, I had a little baby girl. And I said, I got to work. I got to make money. So the guys who were making big money were coming in 2, 3 times a month on Saturday, with a baseball cap, sweatpants, just get on the phone. Here's where I cracked it. I'm working on a Saturday. I call Mr. Bill Evans in Pennsylvania. We're pitching Dr. Pepper 7-Up on a takeover by Cadbury Schweppes. I called him up. I'll never forget what he said to me. I said, hey, Bill, so you're always like, when you're cold calling, you never get on the phone. And if a man answers the phone, you never say, hello, can I speak to Mr. Evans? No, you go, hi, Bill, like hi, Bill. Jim Garofalo, Stratton Oakmmont. He says to me, what do you want? I'm watching the Penn State game. And, I just pitched him, and he bought 500 shares of Dr. Pepper 7-Up. I think that stock was somewhere like $60. The guy sent me $7 million over 3 years, and he put me on the map. He had a milk farm. I went up there. I went to see him. He drove me around in the golf cart, and then the spigot opened. So I always tell my salespeople the same thing that was told to me at Stratton before I even was a broker. He said, picture yourself in a room and you have to go out into a yard, pick up a sledgehammer, and hit a boulder the size of this desk. And that's your job. And every day, 10 hours a day, you just hit that boulder. Hit that boulder. Months go by. Hit that boulder. Hit that boulder. Not even a chip comes off it. Got to hit that boulder. Got to hit that boulder. And then one day you pick up that sledgehammer and you hit it dead on the center, and then the boulder splits in two. And it's not from that one blow. It's from all the blows that came before. Because you get better. Muscle has memory. Your mouth, everything sink into your subconscious that you're able to recall like that. And that's how you become a great, great salesman over the telephone. But it takes stick-to-itiveness. It takes hard work. You got to deal with the rejection. You got to deal with the fuck yous. Take me off your list. I'm on the do not call. I'm going to report you. It's work, but at the end of the day, you'll find somebody that will change your life. I got a funny story. It just popped into my head. It's IPO day. We're bringing public the only real company that Stratton Oakmmont ever brought public, and that was Steve Madden's shoes.
I was just gonna start asking you about that.
So I was a big brand, and at that point I got a lot of units to give to my clients. At that point I was making, I don't know, close to $2 million. I drove in that place in a jalopy Cutlass, and since 2 years later, when I started making money, I've driven a Mercedes or a BMW ever since, brand new, and it was that brand new. That's what started it. Stratton Oakmmont put me on my way. I became a really, really talented salesman over the telephone, and they taught you with. If you guys have ever heard of the straight line method, the straight line method, it's about the energy, but it's also about the sincerity and a lot of things that come into play when you're talking over the telephone. It's never what you say, it's how you say it. And that, to this day, that's how I speak to my clientele over the telephone. So we're bringing Steve Madden's shoes public. I'm sitting next to this guy. I forget his name. He was not a big broker. And he's back then in the early 90s, like the thing to do was have like a little goldfish on your desk in a little bowl. And so everybody's pumped, because as soon as the stock goes off, we're about to get on the phone and go crazy. And this guy next to me, and I had a lot of sales assistants around me too, women. And this guy is cleaning out his fish tank. And Danny Porsche walks by him and sees what he's doing, throws his hand into the fish tank, pulls out the fish and eats it. And the girls, bug out that he just ate the poor goldfish. And that was an hysterical story. So he was special, that guy. Jordan got removed from Stratton. It was Danny in the later years who really was the guy. Jordan, in the very beginning, the first few years I was there, I couldn't believe the meetings he would give. He was brilliant. I mean, he got you motivated. Listen, we had no idea that we drank the Kool-Aid from the get-go. We had no idea that we were buying up all this stock and they were shorting it behind our backs. No one knew that stuff in the beginning. Stocks never moved. They only would go down. But then they would make up for it with crazy, crazy parties. The Christmas parties were like you can't imagine. Back then, they would spend like $300,000-$400,000 on a Christmas party. Or after an IPO, we would go to this place in Great Neck called Millie's and take over the place. And I tell you what, we would walk into restaurants 30 strong and just be obnoxious and take over the whole place. We really thought who we were. I mean, it was something, Or Jordan would say, "Okay, Jim, me and 5 other guys." He goes, "Come on, we're going out to the airport. We're going to jump in a helicopter and go to Atlantic City for a couple of days." And he say, "Here's 10,000. Go play." I mean, that was because you've earned your stripes. If he never did that with anybody who was a nobody in the firm. You had to have earned your stripes. And once again, it took me 2 years to make any money. 2 years of killing myself.
What was your first impression when you first met Jordan Belfort?
I was impressed. He was he was friendly, he was nice, and he was just amazing on the microphone. And sometimes he'd do live calls with clients in front of us, in front of 500 people. At the end of the day, it was 2 football fields with 500 people, and he was as talented as I've ever seen a broker in my life. He was amazingly good, and Danny too. But Jordan was better. Jordan was more of a personality. Towards the later years, they were messed up on Quaaludes every day. You could tell. Danny would give meetings slurring. So would Jordan slurring. That scene in the movie that's Brookville Country Club. That's a real scene. Yeah, he falls down in there. Doesn't think the Quaaludes are taking, so he takes 3 more, and all of a sudden they hit him at once, and then he smashed his Ferrari going back to the house. And I was there at the house the next day. So like once you made it, you got invited to Jordan's mansion in Brookville, Long Island. That was serious. Sit around, smoke cigars, chill out, and talk about business.
What was that like when you got to his house the day after he crashed the Ferrari?
We just went to see him because the news was out there that he had done something to his pregnant wife. Maybe he threw her down the stairs or some shit. I don't think that really happened. In the movie, he kicks her in the stomach. But he did. Then he did try to, I don't know everything. But myself and another broker, Dan Gallagher, may rest in peace. Him and I went together to see what was going on and see if we could help in any way. At that point, he was already out of Stratton, but he was still behind the scenes, like the Wizard of Oz. He was the guy behind the curtain doing all the manipulating all the stocks.
So when you talk about him manipulating the stocks, at what point did it kind of become surreal that everybody here could be in trouble, and when did you have a feeling that something was going on?
Yeah, I mean, probably. So I was there 8 years. Probably we had made a lot of friends there. We were really close. I mean, and someone like Steve Caruso, he decided to go to another firm. He was worried that we were going to get in trouble. A lot of guys quit. The crazy thing was when the guys quit, Danny was giving me their books, and I was out of nowhere I got another 50 clients, so I stayed. And what happened was, after it was all said and done, I went on to still have a big career in Wall Street with many other firms that I work for. But what happened was, every time I went to a new firm, it was a problem with compliance that I worked for Stratton Oakmmont. You think about Stratton Oakmmont, then you think about the Bernie Madoffs of the world and all these other crazy kids that are, if you think about that now, Jordan was nothing compared to what these guys were. But I would have some problems with compliance, but I didn't get in any trouble. I would never trade it. I would never trade that. I would do it 100 times over again. That's how good it was.
Where were you when the FBI came in the first time, when they raided the place?
That's not true in the movie. They never raided the place. They never did. The SEC put 2 SEC agents or whatever, and they sat in the conference room and monitored everything. You got to understand how much money they had, so that they just threw it at the attorneys. And the NASD, which is now called FINRA, the NASD at the time, Jordan was breaking all the rules, and the NASD was rewriting the rules. So I remember there was a mobster in Chicago that lost a lot of money, and there was threats. There was a bomb threat, and then I don't know. You know who Bo Dietl is?
Of course, he's actually my uncle.
Yeah, well, Bo Dietl,
family friend. Yeah,
he was there. He was very close with Jordan. So Bo Dietl put 2 ex-detectives at the door, sitting there, as people came through. Obviously armed guards at the gate. It was crazy. It was crazy. But what happened was, then there was articles in the Wall Street Journal and the Newsday on Long Island were killing us. But it was amazing. We still did business. It like if they were, I remember when you guys won't even remember, but 20 years, whatever it was, over 20 years ago, we brought a company public called the Dollar Store. That's when it first started with these dollar stores. We were one of the ones to bring the first dollar store public. And once again, they did it smart. I mean, they would bring the company in, and they would do a road show, the company, on why the company's going to do so well, and this, that, and the other thing. And then we would ask questions, and it was, it was done really, really professional. So like when we got on the phone and we're pitching the stock, we said, listen, the owners were here today and this is what they said. And here are their numbers. And, the stock is cheap. It's $2, buy 100,000 shares. You're only talking about 200,000. But if I'm half right, you can stand to make $200,000, $400,000. In retrospect, that could have happened, but they would never let it happen because they would just hold the stock back and totally manipulate it. That's how it went with that, as far as why the company's not there today. If they had built one of the most famous machines in Wall Street's history. We were machines, and if they would have just broke away and started selling IBM and Apple and real stocks, the place could still be open today. But the greediness, the drug addiction, him going to London and pulling all that stuff, that's all real in the movie. Him almost dying with Nadine, and who's the other couple? I forget their name. Off the coast of Italy, his yacht called Nadine. They really did get saved by Italian Navy SEALs. They almost died there, and the captain was petrified as well. They were in that was a crazy time for them. Yeah, listen, two crazy guys from Bayside, Queens, man. Who'd think? Jordan and I are the same age. So he went to jail, obviously, everybody knows that, but he's come out of jail and he's made more money with what he does now with his motivational speaking. He basically lives in Australia. Australians love gangsters, and to them, he's a gangster.
So I'll ask you a final couple questions about Stratton before we move on to our next segment. You talked about how you won some of the crazy games that were played there. What were some of the crazy wins that you had there?
Wins is what do you mean by wins?
Like we had midget tossing, and they said that there were some other crazy things that were done after work that you said you won a lot of big bucks in. So what would those things be that nobody really knows about that happened there?
One big, I mean, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, that's what it was. It was, but you had to be somebody to be part of that, and that was like, you walked around. So I think I mentioned to you when I first spoke to you at the every month you get paid once a month, and you'd have to stand up in front of the room and tell the whole office how much gross you did for the month, and you couldn't lie because Danny or Jordan would have the list of what you did. So if you lied, you really got embarrassed. But if you only did 5 gross for the month, which was $2,500 your end, you had to say 5 gross. And then if you were up and coming like me, and then I said I did 25,000 gross for the month, the whole room would clap for you. And that was really, really exciting. Account opening contests, those were awesome. And you want to talk about money? We had a 3-day account opening contest. Scott Wattenberg wound up winning it with 14 paid accounts in 3 days. Because if you got a renege, if the client gave you all this information, his social and everything else, and when your sales assistant FedExed him the stock certificate, if he didn't send it back within 3 days, the trade would be canceled. And if you sold the guy a lot of stock and the stock was down and the guy didn't pay, you got stuck with that hit. And so there was risk involved in that too. So we would, so we did so he won the contest, Scott. And so what they did was they pulled the shades in front of the whole room, and they opened the windows. And this guy, Jordan's driver, just comes wheeling up in a convertible BMW, and Scott just jumps in and pulls away. I mean, they gave away a lot of money. They gave away a lot of Rolexes.
Did you ever catch one when they threw them into the crowd?
Yeah, it's like, I didn't think that much about it. It was more about, it was just, we really lived by that work hard, play hard. That's what it was all about. And when we played hard, we played hard. And, we'd go out and spend thousands of dollars, and it was all sorts of drugs and all sorts of women all over the place. And, that's what we did. It was, and never, just never forget the belly laughs that we had amongst ourselves. There was so many characters there. You cannot imagine how funny they were. 500 guys. I think I saw a fight in the office once. It was just some bullshit pushing around thing. Everybody loved each other. We worked hard. If you quit, you quit. If you quit, you went to another firm and you tried to recruit some of the Stratton guys. Some guys would leave, but I was there till the very end. So I was under the ticket tape, standing next to Mike Albino. At this point, I was giving meetings on the microphone to the room. I had broke that inner circle.
What was that like, giving meetings like that to everybody?
I'll never forget. Howie Gelfand comes up to me with the wireless microphone and says, "Give the afternoon meeting." And so how I really earned my stripes up there. There was a guy named Boschnick. What's his first name? Boschnick. He and Eric Blumen ran all the cold callers. There were, at any given time, 200 people that were waiting to take the test that had to get morning meetings, afternoon meetings after 4 o'clock, after the bell, and it was their crew, and they got paid handsomely to teach and train the cold callers. So what happened was, there was some beef. I never found out what happened, but out of nowhere, and they were big brokers. Those two guys, they got fired. And it was like it went through the room like you couldn't believe that these two guys, one thing about Stratton, like if you were doing good, Danny and Jordan would tout you all the time. If your name was on that board, Jim Garofalo, 2 accounts. Sometimes people would put at 11 o'clock, 11 p.m., 2 accounts, that showed you were there till 11 o'clock. And then when I saw those guys leave, the next day, I just did a beeline to Irv Stitsky's office there. Irv Stitsky was a manager. He was ruthless. I would walk into his office. If you had to sell stock, you had to get one of the principals to sign the ticket. And one time I walked in his office and I said, "Irv, listen, the guy is losing his mind. I've tried to hold him in for days. I have to sell." He took my ticket and put it in a shredder and told me, "I'm not looking for it." Sometimes they would get on the microphone and say, "We're looking for 200,000 shares of ABC," and brokers would go crazy with their books, because they wanted to unload stock that their client was holding to put him into something else. Talking Mr. Jones into raising more money out of him, sometimes you couldn't do, but telling him to sell ABC to buy CDF was easy. And, and that was a trade. That was a commission. So, just so much craziness, so much fun. You want to know more? I mean, what do you want me to tell you more about? You want me to tell you more about?
I want to know about the Steve Madden deal, because that's such a big part of that movie. And at the very end, it was how that was like the giant thing that kind of got Jordan caught. What was everybody's reaction in the office when that all first happened? And then but first you could give me the craziest thing that you ever saw happen at Stratton Oakmmont. The craziest.
There was nothing. it was fun and all, but it was more work than anything else. It was the craziness. I mean, strippers walking around the place naked, with in front of 100 guys. After we did Steve Madden, Danny got up stood on his desk with a big boom box playing "We Are the Champions," and he was all messed up on Quaaludes, and he fell off and almost killed himself. He fell off the desk, and that was pretty crazy. It's hard to remember everything. It's been a long time already, but I just remember that I would do it 100 times over. It was one of the best. And you understand, you're young. I'm like your age. You're probably maybe a few years older than you, but you're young and you're got energy and you believe. And we all drank the Kool-Aid, and you wanted to be the best, and you wanted to be touted, and you wanted your name to be out there. And it was exciting. It was, you get up in the morning, you really wanted to be there. And they had guys like Kenny Brock. Like, if you came in 8:01, this guy would stand at the door with a clipboard. 8:01, slam the door in your face, and you'd have to go home. And then you get marked up, and things like that. They would fire you. They would make you. One thing Jordan said to me one time. I went when he got out of jail. I worked with him in London and La Jolla, California. He said to me one time. He said to me, "Jim, remember, public executions go a long way." And those guys could publicly execute you if you did something stupid. I wish I had more funny stories for you. I mean, listen, the movie doesn't show anything about the way we worked. I mean, DiCaprio was maybe even a little tougher than Jordan was, to be honest with you.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate that movie? Because you knew everything that happened. So
I
1 to 10.
I went to every red carpet. I went to all the new movies. I hung out with Scorsese. It was as far as rating the movie, every now and again I'll watch it again. As far as being real, like the way they set up the boardroom, that was excellent. That was all Jordan. That's how it looked. But obviously,
Yeah.
like I told you, 2 football fields. The movie itself, I would give the movie, I guess, high 7, solid 8, as far as movies go. I mean, I know you guys love it, and it's a great movie. I lived it. A lot of the things in the movie are real. Some of the things aren't true. I'll tell you what happened was, so Jordan calls me just after the movie gets green light, and he goes, DiCaprio and what was the other guy? Danny Porsche's.
Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but it's
Okay.
oh my God, it's Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill.
He says to me, "Can you come to Sushi Seki on 57th Street?" I was living in the city. This is I don't know, maybe a year before it comes out, and he says, I have DiCaprio and I have Jonah Hill here, are going to be here, and they want to talk to a Stratton guy. So I said, sure, I'll come. So DiCaprio never shows, but Jonah Hill does. I'll never forget, Serena Williams came in and sat in the booth right next to us. So he said to me, "Can you tell me?" And I knew Danny Porsche. I knew him. You know what? He just got arrested again for drunken driving here down in Boca, Florida. He lives pretty close to me. I haven't seen him, but he got caught with like a bottle of vodka and swearing, like in by the Boca Beach Club. I mean, guy's still crazy. But like one time, so everybody gets caught up with the money. Now you're gambling football. You only get paid once a month, and I had just became a pretty decent sized broker, but I had to pay the bookie $10,000. I didn't have it. Some guys would blow $100,000 checks in a month, buying Rolexes and Atlantic City and hookers. 100,000, and they were waiting for their next check. I mean, so many guys were like that. And so I said, man, I got to get this money. This guy's on my back. Because why don't you go ask Danny for it? I go, no, really? And so I said, all right. I walked into his office. I told him, I need an advance of 10,000. And he looked up at me and said, tell Tina, his sales assistant, tell Tina to cut you a check. I mean, he was a good guy. He was really, really smart too. His father was a serious doctor, but he's crazy. He thought he was a gangster. He would say, fuck the NASD, fuck these guys. We don't care. We have so much money. They never can take us down. We are the champions. And he fought them like crazy until when I was standing under the ticker tape on December 14th, 1996, next to Mike Albino, and it said, it came across the tape, Stratton Oakmmont expelled. And that was it. They owed the big brokers. It was right before Christmas. I was owed 90,000. And Danny said, he grabbed a bunch of us in his office, maybe a dozen of us, and said, don't worry, you guys are going to get paid. He didn't pay us. But I wound up getting a signing bonus with another company for 100,000. So it worked itself out. But it was sad when it was all over. All the friends and the people, the friends you made, and the vacations we went on with our wives, and just the whole thing was amazing. I would do it over again 100 times. It was. I mean, I've told you a lot. I mean, it's not. What I'm proud of the most is how I learned to put my head down and work.
And then 2 years after Jordan got out of jail, then he calls you, and then you go and you work for him over in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it's 2008. I've already now I go through another crash, and I've already had it. A guy in my friend's already in my ear about selling gold numismatic coins. He's doing
everybody now. You got to listen to this really right now, because this is what Jimmy G's doing now, and it is probably the most interesting thing on how to make money in the world. Right. I was researching all week, so listen. This is the most important part of the whole show.
I'll tell you about what happened. So out of nowhere, so Jordan was out of jail at least a couple of years, and I was still. So what happened with Dean Witter? They paid me a lot. So Dean Witter had a deal with NYU to push the graduates with finance degrees, kind of push them to that brokerage firm. So I had gotten now I'm physically on Wall Street, and Dean Witter, and I got this name as a trainer. So what I did was, so as these kids came in from NYU, I interviewed them, and then the ones I hired, remember I hired a batch of like 35 guys. And the first thing I did was I put them all on computers taking practice exams to pass the 7. All these guys had finance degrees. I think 1 or 2 out of 35 didn't pass. Okay, so now now you spend weeks in the conference room, going back and forth, role playing. I'm Mr. Jones, pitch me. No, I'm not interested. Let me ask my wife. So the whole thing with Stratton, with the beauty of it, was, and I still use this stuff today, but so you're pitching Mr. Jones, 1,000 shares of stock. Then you drop to 500. Then you drop to 200. Then you drop to, all right, Mr. Jones, you win. You win. Dollars, but let me ask you this. Dollars and cents aside, sir. Do you like the idea? Does it make sense? Do you see value? Well, based on what you said, yes. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, it sees value. So what you're doing at that point is you're putting the guy in a corner and you're giving him a series of yeses. He's already said yes, yes, yes. Okay, let me say this to you. If I had been your broker for the last several years and I had shown you 20, 30, 40% of your money, would it be safe to say that you'd be a little less hesitant today? Yeah, you're right. That's always because he doesn't know you. I understand, Frank. You don't know me. All you know is my name is Jim Garofalo. But what you don't know is I didn't get to my position at this company by working on small trades or losing my clients' money, for that matter. Take 100 shares. It's like saying no anyway. It's only $2,000, but the trade will serve as a benchmark for a future relationship. You give me 1% of your confidence today, I'm telling you, I'm going to earn the other 99%. Take the 100 shares. believe me, you're going to thank me. Okay. And that close, I cannot tell you how many times it would work. And I cannot tell you, even in the coin industry, how many times a guy took 100 shares of stock and sent in millions of dollars just on 100 shares. So that close is one of the greatest closes of all time. And Jordan Belfort wrote it. That dollars and cents aside, do you like the idea? Does it make sense? So anyway, he calls me. Oh, and just to touch on those guys from Dean Witter, it was crazy. So it would be, okay, these guys sound great. We're going to get them on the phones. We're going to get them, start getting leads. And after 1 or 2 days, how many, you'd lose 4 or 5, sometimes 10 of these guys, because this part of the brain is always looking for pleasure. This part of the brain is always looking to avoid pain. So getting hung up on the phone and dialing and stumbling on your pitch, it's painful for people. And if you can't stick with it, everybody quits. So you gotta be special to be a real salesman over the telephone. And you got to have blinders on, and you just got to keep going. So, I mean, I trained those guys up. Another thing I did with them was, back then they had the little mini cassettes, and I would tape everybody the first week. And then who was still ever there after 3 months, I was already doing another class by that point, I'd bring them all into the conference room and let them listen to themselves the first week they were on the phone. And they were like, oh my God, how bad did I sound? It's amazing how much you learn if you work hard in a couple, 3 months at a new business, like maybe selling coins. But it's amazing if you work, how much better you get at it. It's the same as picking up a 30-pound dumbbell. Maybe you only can do 5 curls, but if you do it every day, before you know it, you can do 25, 30 at a clip. That's because practice makes perfect. Hard work pays off always. Jordan calls me up and he goes, I hear you're the only one out there still training people with the straight line. I said, wow, man, how you going? It's been a long time. He said, jail really sucked. I said, yeah, I can imagine it did. Because I have a really rich friend in the UK, and he has people on the telephone selling Forex platforms, basically training people how to trade currencies. And I was like, he's like, I need a guy down there with me. Would you be interested in going? And then they threw all this money at me. I stayed in a penthouse in one of the hotels there. I had a BMW to drive, and I said, you know what? My kids were about to go to college. I said, when am I going to be able to go to the UK and live in London? And they're giving me all this money. So I did that, and it was mostly me. I stayed there. He went back and forth to California. It was me who trained those guys. I quadrupled that guy's business. And I know it because I was really friendly with the accountant who I played golf with. And him and I became buddies. And he told me the numbers. But then when it came to renew my contract, like 7 months later, and he was like, I was like nowhere close. Like, to be a managing director in the UK, you have to interview 30 British people before you can hire an American, because they don't want the money coming out of the country, basically. So the rules and regs there. And they did it, and they still wanted to hire me, but he wasn't close for me to stay in that country for a solid 3 years, to sign this contract. So, over there, all you do is either you go to the Chelsea football game or you go to the pub. That's it. There's nothing else they do there in London is basically go to the pub every single night. So anyway, I went back home. Then he said he had a brainstorm with this guy in California, in La Jolla, California. He said, I got this guy, and he's got this great idea. His name is Frank Kern. Google that guy, Frank Kern. He is, I don't know if he still is the biggest marketer on the internet, but he was huge. So they made me partners with him and Frank Kern. And what we did was we built 100 people, staff, cold coin dentists, doctors, chiropractors, building a really cool website for them, but more importantly, driving the traffic. And that was Frank Kern's He was internet marketer, the best in the country. I haven't spoke to him in a long time. I haven't seen anything from him, but already at that point, the guy was probably worth about $50 million already in 2000, and that was 2009.
So
at the end of the day, it didn't work out because, I mean, they still paid me a lot of money to go there. I don't know if you've ever been to La Jolla, California. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. And then I came back home and I broke into the coin business.
I like it. So Jimmy G, before we end, you talked about how you would give speeches up at Stratton with the microphone. So I'm going to give you the next 2 minutes. I'm going to put you on the spot here. And you're going to, I coach. So I give those pregame and those halftime speeches that win or make games. So I need you to help everybody here win at life. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. There's probably about 500 people watching this podcast, probably and hopefully more, but we got to grow somewhere. The floor is yours. You're up on stage with a microphone, and you're going to give us some motivation right now.
Well, listen, whatever you do in life, the most important thing is if you believe in the career, the most important thing is in the beginning is to follow the leader. Look for the people that are successful and work hard. Not everybody can be a leader. I'm a leader, but not everybody can be a leader, but that's okay. Follow the leader. Do what the leader does. The leader who's making money, who's working late, who comes early, stays late. If being a stockbroker is your passion, listen, that will be my, I can never do it again, but that's my all-time favorite pitch in stock. Just the energy, the amount of the telephone was the greatest invention ever made because of the amount of people you could get on the phone. Now, unfortunately, people don't pick up the phone like they used to back in the day, but it's still the best sales tool ever made. You gotta find something you like. Listen, if it's selling insurance, it's not sexy, but you can make a lot of money doing it. So you can do it. You want to go down to Wall Street? You're not going to make money for a long time because no one's going to give you their accounts. But if you hit the rock and you hit the rock, bingo. I have a guy that works for me, Ray Algalar. He didn't even make $100,000 last year, but because of the power of a phone call, he got this doctor on the phone in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Then what we do with my staff is we don't just give them leads and throw them in the water and say sink or swim. We support everybody. So what he did was he got Peter on the phone, my sales manager. And then Peter closed the guy on, let's say, a $20,000 sale. I can tell you that to this date, he's probably been with us, this client, for 3 months. He's a very, very successful MD in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Actually, April 21st, we're going down to see him. The guy has sent in $900,000 already. He gave us one of his friends, another woman, who spent $200,000. And the people that we're going to go to meet in Albuquerque are a lawyer, another friend of his, and another friend of his who just inherited $500 million. What do you think? What do you think I'm going to pitch that guy? I'm going to pitch that guy $10 million worth of coins, right? It's all the power of a cold call. You got to put your head down and work. And it's not lucky. It's from all, you know what I mean? It's from all the blows that came before. If you're in a telemarketing business right now, you got to make 300 dials a day. Dials, 300, because numbers don't have the capacity to lie. They're just numbers. And if you stick to it, there's nothing better than the salesman, because commission, when I learned at 17 years old, you mean sky's the limit? Yeah, sky's the limit. I'm all in for that. I'm all in for sky's the limit, right? I'm not in for punching a ticket and getting a salary and getting a bullshit Christmas bonus. No, I want big trades. And that happens by you learning the business, working hard, working smart, planning your work your plan, and stick to it. If the company is real that you're working for and you believe in it, then just work hard. Guys like you, your age, if you were breaking into any type of telemarketing business, and there's potential. I'm not talking about cash advance or any of the other fake things out there where you have potential to make real money. Young guys like you can architecturally set up your life. By the third time you're 35, you're retired. I'm talking about you doing it on yourself. I'm not talking about inheriting money or anything. You being the self-made millionaire. You can do it. You're young. I did it when I was young. I still do it to this day. But when I was young, I was an animal on the phone, an animal. Never stopped on Saturdays and everything else. So, I mean, that's my message to people out there. My message is, if the company is good and you believe in it, follow the leader and work hard and read and read and read. One of the smartest things was ever told to me was a guy who was very successful said to me when I was a broker, he said to me, Jim, do you have the Wall Street Journal and Investors Business Daily delivered to your house in the morning? I go, no. He goes, they deliver it at 5 a.m. Make sure you get that. And then he said, when you get it, you take your yellow highlighter and you just highlight a few sentences from each newspaper. And you put them into your pitch. Or you say to Mr. Jones, let me ask something, Mr. Jones, did you read the Journal this morning? 99% of the time, the guy will say no. But then you'll read off a paragraph that is, positive for whatever you're talking about. And this Mr. Jones says, you know what? This is a smart guy. This is a guy I want to send my money to. So you got to do research. You got to work hard. You can't do everything. You can't shoot from the hip on everything. It takes hard work. But hard work pays off always. And, you want to get into sales and it's a real sale where the potential. See, last thing I'll say, and I'll stop. The greatest thing about being a stockbroker or selling numismatic graded coins is it's like if you're selling insurance, it's basically a one and done sale. You can get recurring and whatnot, but you got to look for somebody else. When you're a broker or you're selling numismatic graded coins, you're building a book of business. So if you open Mr. Jones today on a $10,000 sale, well, you can open him. You could sell him a month from now, 2 weeks from now again. And how about 15 more times this year? How about I have people that are in my book for 11 years since I've been in the coin industry. And that's what you want. You want to build a book of business. Last thing was, there were clients I had when I worked on Wall Street that would send me $3 million. But one thing that they would never do was send me their golfing buddy. To get a referral on Wall Street was the hardest thing. You always ask for them. Hey, can you send me you have any friends? And they just would not send their golfing buddy because they didn't want to hear it if you lost their clients' money. But in the industry that I'm in now, all you got to do is ask for referrals and you get them. So, that's my message out there, man. I'm the real McCoy. I worked hard for everything I had. I'm known all over the country. Everybody knows Jimmy G. I'm striped up. I'm a 4-star brigadier general because I freaking earned it. I started as just a soldier, and it's been a long, cool road.
Jimmy G, thank you for coming on the Winning Podcast. As always, I ask all of my guests before we end. You have any questions for me?
Not really. Let me just briefly touch on right now, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, I don't know. I'm sure some of you people saw yesterday Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes.
There was a run on it. All right. They're out of business. It's the largest bank to close overnight since 2008. I've been telling people we're in the same time, 2009. I sell gold, silver, and numismatic coins. My company name is Professional Coin Galleries.
We're gonna put it in the. We're gonna put
now
it into
the time. Please put it in.
We're gonna.
Professional Coin Galleries. Now is the time for everybody to protect themselves with gold, silver, platinum, palladium, numismatic coins. If anybody is interested in learning more, please go to my website. My website is PC Galleries, GALLERIES.
You can also find it in the description.
And if anybody wants to work and to get trained up by me, work remotely, then you should give me a call or send me an email. And you put my email in there too, right, Phil?
Yep, absolutely.
And yeah, now is the time. Pay attention. And then also on my video, I was the keynote speaker for the Money Show on October 5th, 2021. They asked me to come on. There was 4,000 people in the audience. None of them knew anything about numismatic coins, had never purchased numismatic coins, but they wanted to learn more. Click on the button on the bottom of my website. You'll see the perfect storm. That's what I named that video. That we've raised probably $5 million behind that video. It just gives you good insight. Anyway, Phil, thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jimmy G.
Enjoyed going back in the day to Stratton, Oakmmont. You know, if I ever think of anytime else I could help you,
you're gonna be back on the podcast pretty soon. Don't worry, you're coming on. I think this might be a monthly thing because I think people are gonna be so inspired, so juiced, and that's the good part about this podcast is you know, last year we did a lot of big episodes. We had a lot of big people. We did things people didn't like, and people kind of said, oh, you know, your podcast is dead and it's all these things. And I said, the difference between my podcast to everybody else is, okay, you could have a sports one, you could have a motivation one, but I go, this is philosophy, baby. I go, we do everything and we win and we get people on here who will change your life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Winners Podcast. Winners win. Boom. Philosophy, always there. Never stop. I'll see you soon.
Later.